Am I the a-hole for wanting revenge on my childhood best friend for using me? Kyoko Mogami, 16 female, discovered not too long ago that my childhood friend, Sho Fuwa, 16 male, has been using me as a maid, and now that he has made it as a singer, he doesn't need me anymore. So I was told to pack my things and go back to Kyoto. I swore to him that I would get revenge. He laughed in my face and told me the only way to do that is if I became more famous than him. Well, guess what, Sho? Challenge accepted. To understand why I'm here, you need to know how this all started. I was just an ordinary girl from Kyoto with no big ambitions or dreams. I didn't care about fame or fortune. If I'm being honest, all I wanted was to be loved and accepted by the people close to me. Meanwhile, Sho has always been different. Ever since he picked up his first guitar, he knew he wanted to be a star. I have known Sho Fuwa for most of my life. We literally grew up together. You see, my mother is an ambitious lawyer who has worked very hard to get where she is today. But that also meant that she had very little time for me growing up. She was always away on business trips, and when she was home, I could feel I was a burden on her. I tried everything just to please her and to make her feel proud of me. Like, for example, I always did my best to get perfect scores on my tests, but nothing worked. In the end, my mother decided that for her career, it was best if she moved to Tokyo and that I would stay behind with our neighbors, the Fuwas and their son, who was the same age as me. And that, you guys, is how I got close to Sho Fuwa, who is now literally a famous musician. Just thinking about how I used to be around him and how I thought about him gives me the biggest ick. The Fuwa family owns an old traditional Japanese inn chain, whose main branch is in Kyoto. That's where Sho and I lived since I was 6 years old. Sho's parents became my pseudo-parents. I wanted to show them that they didn't make a mistake in taking me in, so I did everything they asked me to do. That's how I learned everything there is to know about running a traditional Japanese inn: cooking, cleaning, hospitality, management, and even traditional tea ceremony etiquette. I mastered it all. So while I was busy learning the ropes and trying to please Sho's parents, at school things weren't going so great. Well, I'm not talking academically. My grades have always been good. I mean socially. Besides Sho, I never had any other friends. You see, Sho has always been popular. Whether it's now as an artist or when he was in school, people were always drawn to him. The boys admired him, and the girls practically worshipped him. So when they realized how close I was to him, they turned on me. I was the nobody girl that dared to hang around their idol. Well, you can imagine what jealous schoolgirls do to girls like me, but it didn't really bother me. All I cared about at that time was being seen as a dependable girl, someone that wouldn't cause the Fuwa family any trouble. So I ignored their hostility and just hoped that they would stop when they saw that it didn't affect me that much. Anyway, I secretly prided myself on being the one person in Sho's life that knew him the best. I now realize how silly those thoughts were that I had about Sho at that time. But what can I say? I was young and naive, and I would do anything for Sho. That's why when he asked me after we graduated from middle school if I wanted to go with him to Tokyo to pursue his dream of becoming a musician, I said yes. He told me his parents would never understand his dreams and ambition of becoming a famous musician, and that they were planning to make him marry a plain, boring local girl. I didn't even hesitate. I left everything behind and went with him to Tokyo. But life in Tokyo was anything but a fairy tale. I had to work at least 4 jobs just to provide for us, to pay the rent of the expensive apartment he picked out and also clean our new home, cook his favorite dishes, and praise him for his hard work as an up-and-coming singer. Also, every penny I could save went right back to supporting Sho, buying his merch, posters, CDs, you name it, I owned it. Looking back at it, I don't know how I was able to live like that and not collapse from exhaustion. I guess my obsession with him kept me going. You probably think I'm an absolute fool for doing so much and not realizing I was being used the whole time. And honestly, looking back at it, I agree. But you have to understand, I was just a 15-year-old girl with barely any education and nowhere else to go. Sho was everything to me. He was my home, my purpose, my reason to get up each day. His fans might not have known who I was, and he definitely didn't want anyone finding out, but I took pride in being the person closest to him. Other women would die just to see him, but I got to live with him, be near him, comfort him, talk to him whenever I wanted. Ironic looking back, because he rarely came home after his star was rising. He would ignore my calls and acted like I didn't exist in public. The last time I saw him privately was one night when he came home after what was honestly a really long day. For me, not him. He was cranky and unusually hostile. I tried to cheer him up and even ran to the convenience store to grab his favorite pudding. It worked for a little while. Only for a moment, it was just like those good old times when we had just moved to Tokyo, eating his favorite pudding while watching television. But then Rin Suruga, the most popular actor in the country, appeared on screen, and before I knew it, he had stormed off. I learned early on that the one person I should never praise around Sho is him. Whenever Rin Suruga is mentioned in his presence, he starts fuming. I always tried to tell Sho that he's much better than Rin Tsuruga, that he's just too young for women in their 20s to want him, that when he'll be 20 he too will be that popular. But he would just get mad at me and misunderstand what I was trying to say. Well, I was still madly in love with him even until that moment and was trying everything to appease him. Then came the day I realized just how twisted his intentions had been all along. I wanted to cheer him up after that horrible night, so I decided to surprise him at his gig with his favorite meal from a fast food company, disguised as a delivery. But when I arrived, there he was, sitting in the lobby with this beautiful woman. I was close enough to overhear them. And well, I heard everything, and I mean everything. They were talking about me, and none of it was flattering. Sho was telling her about how he couldn't care less about me, about how he'd just been using me as a maid because in his words, you can't expect the great prince of a traditional Japanese to have to clean his house or even cook, do you? And he was too good looking. So of course he never was going to work a minimum wage job to cover his living expenses. The woman, which turned out to be his manager, asked him if he dragged me to the city just to be his maid. What he said next shattered everything. He said, and I quote, "Since childhood, that girl has never became upset about anything I used to say to her. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have chosen her to come with me to Tokyo." He continued to spew the most hateful words ever and told the woman that since he had given me a choice, it was not like I was forced to come. She came here on her own accord, of course. She has to work hard to support me. I also found out that the reason Sho wasn't coming home was because he was staying at this woman's, Shuko's place. And while I was working myself to the bone, he's been able to attend high school while studying and practicing guitar and singing, all generously funded by his agency, of course. The worst part, the plain, boring local girl his parents wanted him to marry someday was me. Apparently they had been training me all along to one day take over the responsibility of running their traditional Japanese inn. They told him that I was a girl with a lot of sense. Well, I can only disagree with this last part because how silly was I to run away from home and believe everything Sho ever told me. Everything crumbled before me at that moment. But something shifted inside of me. It was like I unlocked a completely new person inside of me. Someone that wasn't going to turn the other cheek and do as he said. So I confronted Sho on the spot. I threw his meal straight at him. And after that I told him I would get my revenge on him. He laughed in my face, telling me that if I wanted to get revenge on him, I would have to break into the entertainment world, and that for a worthless, ordinary girl like me, that would be impossible. But nothing's going to stop me from getting this revenge. I will show him, and I mean it, I'm ready to give him a taste of his own medicine. So, tell me, am I the a-hole for wanting to exact revenge on the one person who used me and then thought he could just get rid of me when he didn't need me anymore? Well, to be honest, I'm not actually asking for advice here. This post is more to vent than it is to ask for advice. I don't care about the consequences. I'm getting back at him even if it's the last thing I do. Edit. I see that a lot of you guys are calling me a doormat. And even though it hurts to get called out like this, I now get it. And yeah, you guys are right. I'm not afraid to own up to this. Ibas a doormat. Some of you have also pointed out that the red flags were clearly visible in middle school, that a true friend would never let others have harassed me. Well, first off, I want to make clear that those girls never did this in front of him. They wanted him to only see them in a positive light, so they made sure that he never witnessed their ugly side. Secondly, as I said before, I didn't want to cause any trouble for the Fuwa family, so I never spoke up about this. I was afraid that if I did speak up, they would throw me out. Also, I learned early on not to cry in front of Sho, that it made him very uncomfortable. He never knew how to handle those kind of emotions. I'm not making any excuses for him. That's just the way he's always been. Also, some of you have been asking about my dad. Well, I can't say that much about him, because I don't know anything. The only parent I ever known was my mom, and whenever I asked about him in the past, she would just get very upset. So I have no idea who he is, or where he is for that matter. First update. Alright everyone. I know it was impulsive of me to say that I would get back at him by breaking into showbiz, but I'm not one to back down from my word. So of course the first thing I needed to do was to give myself a full-blown makeover. To start this new chapter in my life, I said goodbye to the old plain me and welcomed in the new me with a bold look. I think it's a big improvement. After that, I quickly moved out of the luxurious apartment or should I say, I was renting. I was lucky enough to be able to find a place to stay with one of my employers from my part-time jobs. After settling in with them, I decided to start my journey by going to LME. They are the largest talent agency of this country. If I want to beat Shotaro, I can't go to an agency that's smaller than his. So I kind of pestered their head of the talent division every day to let me join. His name is Takenori Sawara. And let's just say my persistent attitude worked, because unlike a certain famous actor, he was kind enough to give me a chance to join. He told me about the aptitude test that LME holds every year to find new talents that are worth looking after. It's in 5 days, although it's a long shot. Still, to get this opportunity is amazing in and of itself. So wish me luck. Edit. So some of you are a little confused and wondering about who Shotaro is. Well, Sho's full name is actually Shotaro, but he hates it. So my petty revenge is that from now on I'll mostly refer to him as Shotaro. Edit number 2. Okay, I see you guys speculating about this certain famous actor. I am not going to reveal who he is just yet. But anyway, this guy is so rude to me. I thought he was polite and kind to everyone, but I guess I'm the exception. You know what he did after meeting me for the first time? He kicked me out of the LME agency building, just as I was thinking to myself that now I had no reason to dislike him anymore. He gave me a big reason to dislike him. Also, he thinks that just because I'm determined, it won't be enough. Who is he to say that? Sure, I don't know how to sing or act, and I have no particular talent for anything that I can think of, but that's not going to stop me from achieving my goal. Second update. Well, sorry for not updating you guys for almost 2 weeks, but a lot has happened, and I needed time to process everything. Anyway, some of you might have guessed it, but I didn't get selected by LME. Takanori was kind enough to explain to me afterwards that although my act, which was carving out a beautiful flower out of a carrot, stood out from the other talented people that were there, the second part of the audition was actually the most important part. The director of LME, Lori Takarada, designed a psychological test to see if the talents that want to be represented by LME agency are able to love their audience. And it's this test that I failed miserably. It made me realize that somewhere along the way, I have lost this very important emotion, and I have no idea how to get it back. So I cried myself to sleep that night, and for a couple of days, I completely gave up on the idea of becoming famous. But then a few things happened. First, I actually met Shotaro while I was working at one of my part-time jobs, and that despicable human being didn't recognize me at all. How could he not recognize me? His closest friend for almost 10 years. He just pisses me off so much. Anyway, although this frustrated me, what made me go and try again was actually my boss and landlord, Teisho. He isn't a man of many words, so he gave me a Daruma doll and told me to be like this doll. This made me realize that I couldn't just give up after failing once. I had to try again. Anyway, it turns out Lori Takarada actually made a whole new section within LME called the Love Me section, and I'm its first member. They were waiting for me to return, and now I'm just over the moon for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Edit. Okay, I see that you guys still have some questions, so I try to answer them as best as possible. First of all, I see that many of you are wondering about the Daruma doll. Well, the restaurant of my landlord, Teisho, is actually called after this doll. It's a doll that no matter how hard you try to knock it down, it always bounced back up. He also has the slogan, "No pain, no gain" on the wall. So yeah, this has always been his life motto, and he has now passed this on to me. Secondly, I see that many of you are wondering what the Love Me section is all about. Well, Lori Takarada, the director of LME agency, himself explained that over the next year, I will have to perform many different tasks and show people that I'm able to earn their love and trust. After a year, if I have earned enough points, LME will launch me as one of their talents. I will actually have a real debut. Can you believe it? Third, and for now final update. Hello guys, sorry for not updating for a week. Things have gotten really hectic for me the last few weeks, with juggling my part-time jobs and also working for LME. So I started working in the Love Me section, and let me tell you, I have met so many new people. Some really nice, some not so much, and then there's a certain famous actor that seems to have it out for me. I feel that I'm seeing a side of him that not many people get to see. Anyway, after a couple of small requests like scraping the gum of the floor, which I ended up cleaning, so well that a lot of people got hurt because they slipped. Well, back to what I was saying, recently I was able to accompany an actress to a film set. Her name is Ruriko Matsunai. Well, I have never met a more arrogant person than her. She made me believe that she was allergic to the sun and that I needed to protect her from it by carrying her on my back with a huge parasol, which led to me falling and twisting my ankle, and that led to a certain famous actor, of all people, finding me and carrying me in his arms to set. It was so embarrassing, but after he sat me down, his very friendly manager helped me bandage my ankle. I soon realized that Ruriko was a nightmare to work with on set. This led to many small disputes on set. So at one point, the director had enough, and that's when he decided to have a competition between both of us. We had to do 2 scenes, and the one that did the best job would actually get the role. So even though I never thought of becoming an actress, I took this opportunity and said yes to this challenge. Nothing was going to stop me. And even I was surprised at how fascinating it was to act. A certain famous actor showed me what it was like when one takes this job seriously, and I'm secretly very impressed. I vowed to myself to be like him. I was able to impress everyone with my acting in these 2 scenes, even though this role isn't something new to me. In the end, the director still went with Ruriko. After she saw how demure and sophisticated I was and how serious I took it, she stopped being a brat and she took a page out of my book and started being more demure, more professional. The director explained to me afterwards that he was always going to go with Ruriko, but that he needed her to start taking this role seriously. I didn't mind not getting the role. This challenge made me realize that for the first time in my life, I was doing something because I wanted to do it, not because someone told me to do it. Plus, they also did my makeup. I have never looked so beautiful as when I looked in the mirror after the makeup artists were done. I truly felt like a princess. The sad part is that they had to take it off at the end. I pleaded with them, but they were firm and told me that leaving makeup on would be bad for my skin. So I reluctantly let them take it off. Edit. Okay, I see that everyone really wants to know who this certain famous actor is. I wasn't going to say anything at first, but some of you have been guessing it correctly. Yes, it's Rin Tsuruga. Some of you have also been outraged that the director came up with this challenge, even though he was never going to let me win, and that he wasn't being considered when he made me act while I was injured. Well, first of all, I'm the one that had accepted the challenge. I could have said no and just rested my foot. But that's just not who I am. When an opportunity presents itself, I will grasp it and hold on to it with both hands. And I may not have won this challenge, but I'm glad that Ruriko learned something from seeing me act. While the director did apologize for this, he never thought that I would take this challenge so seriously that I literally fainted from the pain after it was over. Apparently, I had impressed everyone on set that day because not once did I show any pain or discomfort while I was acting. I was able to be a serene lady from high society. But as I said before, this role isn't something new to me. Shotaro's mother taught me how to walk with the correct posture, and that no matter what, if I was feeling some discomfort or even pain, the customer should never be made aware of this. The customer is there to have an amazing time and not there to worry about their hostess. So as a hostess, you need to strive for perfection. Until a year ago, this was a role I constantly had to perform while I was helping the Fuwas in their inn. It did frustrate me a little that I was praised for something that I learned while living with the Fuwas. Lastly, some of you are wondering why I'm so happy with getting my makeup done. Well, before this, I had actually never worn makeup before. I didn't have the money to buy makeup products, and even if I had these products, I wouldn't know how to use them correctly. Edit number 2. By the way, the director felt so guilty that he arranged a photo shoot for me in the costume I was wearing on set as a way to make it up to me. Now I have pictures of myself looking like a princess. Anyway, I hope this clears things up for you all. If I have any more updates, I'll be sure to share them with you.
Hello, Anima Wisdoms here. Thank you for watching this video. If you're curious, click here for the Revenge is a Dish Best Served Cold playlist.